Yo, the people. What's up? My name is IroC. Welcome to the IroC podcast. And today we are sitting with one of the greatest. I think everyone on my show, I think is like the greatest. But last week we just hoid in the previous episode with August Maluka. And that wasn't episode 1. So if you thought that was the actual episode, you're about to experience something else. Welcome to the IroC podcast, and this is the intellectual relations of consciousness. So today we are with one of the greatest to ever live on this earth. There are no better words to define them, to say this is what they do and they don't do. But I think it's better for them to introduce themselves. I give to you Lindo Mhlanga. Welcome.
We need drum rolls or something for this, but firstly, congratulations. Thank you for having me here. Your first episode, or what did you call it?
It's a pilot.
Pilot. It was excellent. I watched it twice, but it was good.
Real.
Cool. You wanted an introduction. Who am I?
Yeah.
Name is Lindo Mhlanga. I am a professionally trained chef, activist, food lover, and just all-rounder, amazing, awesome person.
Okay, people who don't know you, they call you Opera Ogoshe, right? Mm-hmm. And if you want to see Opera Ogoshe, go to Instagram, search pega_Ogoshe, and then uzobona Ugudla Ogoshe, right?
I should get you as my hype person. But that is correct. Yes, Pega_Ogoshe.
Yeah.
And do you want to know a little bit about it?
Before.
Yes.
I just want to understand you as a person, right? So as you can see here, we have a zebra and a lion, right? And the significance of these, one day I'll explain the motorbike and the car, guys. But for now, I have this saying I always say to myself, right? That in a jungle every day, when a zebra wakes up, it's like, I need not to be eaten by the lion, in order for me to survive. And the lion says, I need to eat that zebra in order for me to survive. But the story here, the moral of the story is, you need to survive. So it doesn't matter if you wake up as a zebra or a lion. But my question to you is, which one do you want to identify as in the jungle between a zebra and a lion?
Difficult one. I think purely based on how I'm dressed today, I'll probably go for the zebra.
Wow, got black and white.
Black and white for life.
Yeah. So do you think you link more towards being a zebra who runs around and be like, I don't have to be eaten by the lion? Or do you think you are like the lion, with the boldness and the braveness?
So I wouldn't necessarily say that the zebra is not brave on its own. So I think that the lion just gets the credit for that. But I would say merely on just the, I think the story behind zebras also is you never really see them and they're very secretive and I'm here, I'm not there.
Yeah.
So I think I strongly identify with that too. And I don't know, maybe I would say I'm not necessarily the most interesting person. So when I was black and white is boring.
What?
So I think that's why I also not to say zebra is boring at all. Sorry, zebras. No. I mean to say it's just I think I have a very non-exciting life, I would say. Maybe that's why I identify with this.
Yeah, guys. For some viewers, they think Upega Gushe is not an interesting person. I have met them. They are the greatest you know. And they are my parents as well, you know. Like, yeah, I have many parents, and one of them is Upheko Kuhle, guys. You know why? Because Upheka kamnandi, right?
I know.
So what inspired Upheka Okuhle?
So for like the longest of times, I think I remember when I was like really young, I like collected a lot of like recipes. So I've got like 4 lever arch files. I think that's what you call them, like really thick files. I still have them to this day. I haven't tried any of the recipes on them, but I remember for the longest of time, I think as a kid, I would like every newspaper or every magazine that I read, I would always be like, not the sports, not like anything that's on there, but I would always immediately like jump to the recipes and like cut them out. And I think that in its own was really just like hey, like I really love this. And also I enjoyed food as well. But it's sad, it really started off from like my early days. And I thought like chefs were really amazing people. And I probably took quite a detour to like eventually becoming a chef and like professionally training for it.
Okay.
Because that was just like, it's the whole thing of like, maybe there's not enough like money in being a chef. And again, I think never do that. Like, go for your passion and like do what you want to do, regardless of whether there's money or not. I think that's just putting it out there. But it started off from that. I really loved food as a kid. I collected food, and I still collect recipes. And eventually, I was like, hey, why not just like cook the things and then put them on social media? It took a while. So like, I'm still a baby when it comes to
What?
a baby. I'm still a baby, not to like cooking. But just to like really familiarizing myself or like being comfortable or like being relevant when it comes to like Instagram and all those things.
But hey, like it's guys, today wabona after this episode you need to have like some new followers.
Oh, Lord,
they
no
need to like see the stuff you're cooking and after that ngicela imiliam. But there's one thing I've seen. Guys, don't kill me for this. I knew when I asked you about the lion and the zebra that you're gonna choose a zebra, right? And I'll tell you why. Reason, I think it's because if you look into your meals, right? I've never seen meat there, right? And I'm not sure, is it because of your choice of being a vegan or a vegetarian, you know, what was inspired? But because I also thought, it's like, you know, a vegetarian if it was a human, you know. So I knew in a way you'd choose a zebra.
What?
Yeah. So what inspired you to like say no to this meat thing?
I think it was about like 12 years ago. And I don't know, like, you know, when you like just like eat meat or I'd like eat meat and I never really felt satisfied. Like it's that, you know, maula, and then it's like, you feel like your cells have like been fed. So I never really had that. And then I just figured, hey, let me try out like cutting out meat and then see how that would feel. And it stuck. Like 12 years on, I'm still a vegetarian, and I only prepare, well, not only, but like for like my Instagram. Oh Lord, I'm very like, what do you call it? What's that? I use my hands a lot when I speak. So I'll speak into this. Oh yes, now I can hear myself. So it was like one of those things of like meat was not really like doing it for me.
Yeah.
And then I figured, let me just try out being a vegan. It really was like a 1-year thing. But like 12 years later, I'm still a vegetarian. I did try out being a vegan.
Okay.
But then I guess a vegan and I didn't necessarily like gel.
So you were once a vegan.
Yes.
12 years ago, you were a vegan.
So I started off as a vegetarian.
Okay.
And then I was that for about 2 years. And then I kind of was introduced to like veganism, and it wasn't exciting. So I was like, let me try this out. So I cut out like all like dairy products and like, of course I was not eating meat, but like dairy and cheese and like all like dairy ice cream. So I cut that out and then
eggs,
went back off.
eggs as well, right?
And eggs as well too.
Okay.
And I did that for like, I think a year. And then maybe I like missed cheese so much or like ice cream. So I kind of went back to being a vegetarian.
So as a vegetarian, tell me what is that difference? Because I don't think like many people we know like the difference between a vegetarian and being a vegan, right? And for me, right, coming from the township, I come in and then people are like, yeah, here we are only eating like plants. I'm like, hey guys, for a week they're like, here. I'm like, yo, this is taboo. Man, we are healthy, you know. And I wasn't that much, you know. And so I thought, okay, this means everyone is a vegan because when we met, you know, it's when like also these vegans, they were like starting to pop up and they were like taking over like social media. Everyone is a vegan, everyone, you know. I was like, what is the difference now for like an ordinary person who doesn't know the difference?
So a vegan or somebody who is a vegan, they do not consume any meat.
Okay.
And any kind of like products coming from or like made from meat, and also eggs. So you literally are cutting out any dairy
from animals.
From animals.
Okay.
So they don't have meat, they don't have eggs, they don't have cheese. Anything that contains or is taken out or comes from an animal, they would not have that. I mean, the history really behind veganism is really one that, like not having or consuming meat, but there's also like a very strong connection to non-violence and really kind of the act of slaughtering an animal for eating. I think that kind of like fundamentals, like the fundamentals of veganism really come from that. Then you'd asked about vegetarian and what it is. So a vegetarian is they do not eat meat, but also there's different types of vegetarians. So they are kind of like a general vegetarian. We call them general vegetarians who would have everything except for meat. So they would still have eggs, they would still have milk, they would still have cheese. Then you get some vegetarians that only have fish. That do not have red meat or do not have chicken or eggs or anything else, and they would have they have fish in their diet. Then you have some vegetarians that it gets very like nuanced and specific. So some that don't have eggs, others that don't have lactose, so they would like kind of have eggs but not necessarily have milk. But yeah, that's really. But fundamentally, I think what is similar with the kind of two lifestyles is there really isn't any consumption of meat, although I've spoken about the fish and general vegetarians. And and maybe just also just like speak to, I think a lot of the times it's maybe just like the reputation that like these two lifestyles have gotten. Of like, I think you had mentioned Utegasi, I would not necessarily know this. And I'm like, but I don't think that's like completely untrue because we have like Umpawako, we have Istampa. And all of those are necessary. You don't have like meat in them. So it's just probably I think maybe I'm trying to move away from it is not like a Indiasikas. It's just that maybe we haven't like termed it or coined it that. But like people still have like ipapa, and like fried cabbage, which is like the best on earth.
Okay. Actually, that's... Hey, man. You know, I was saying one day to someone that cabbage, tin fish, neputhu, umphokoqo, ne?
Umphokoqo, yes.
Yeah. So if I happen to move out of the township and they say you can take me out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of me.
Yes.
Are they talking about these 3 meals, guys? Like, no way. I love.
It's simplicity.
I love.
It's like very delicious. I'm sorry to jump in. But like, it is like the best things on earth. Like there's nothing more than like uputu and you just like fry the cabbage and nothing. Like don't go extravagant. Don't go like all. Just like it's why salt or like pepper. And like fry it up and like still have it a little crunchy, but not so crunchy at the same time. I mean, there are others that have gone to like private school and they have like carrots and stuff like that, but let's keep it simple. Utine papa, done. That's a meal. Set. You're full, you go to bed, and that's it.
I have a question.
Yes.
And it's a yes or no.
Okay.
What I justify?
Oh Lord, I struggle with that. Yeah.
So growing up,
Yes.
right? Have you ever experienced this thing? Apparently it happens, guys, where maungene gating ane unukelwa yivorce and then ufike endlini uthola cabbage. Yes or no? Have you like bakhe ba frya icabbage ngamafutha wevorce basically?
Yes.
Yo, shame. Sorry. Guys, angiyazi le nto le. Mina personally. Angiyazi ne. But here's one thing I want to ask you. As a vegetarian, do you eat bread?
Yes.
Do you eat fried chips?
Yes.
Or fries?
Always.
Right.
Yes.
Do you eat acha?
Yes. Acha is amazing, and the hotter the better.
Oh, okay. You know why I'm asking?
Yes.
Yeah,
Tell me.
these are fundamentals phela ekasi for record. So like I'm thinking Guti, like when you come, and visit a guys, like what is it that I can prepare for you?
Let me tell you what you can prepare. So you will have bread. So obviously that's like the basic and like so you have chips. So I still have like my chips.
Okay.
Ungafaka maybe cheese nyana. And the acha, lots of the acha, because obviously we need to compensate for not having like a irration and stuff. So like the acha,
yes.
you can eat like greens, like a lettuce if you want to like be healthy. It depends on the day. If I want to be healthy, I can be like add lettuce or not.
They will come for you.
But like it's that. Like I think it's just that, and lots of sauce. Like there's like your vinegar and get like a chip spice and get like all the sauces that you can put. I guess what I'm really kind of going with this is like it like. I think a lot of the times you go into spaces and people think like, oh Lord, Lindo is vegetarian, and then it's like a whole ordeal, and like we need to get specific food. But really, sometimes it's as simple as just that. Like isengwa na chipsi, ngafaka ne cheese nyana, faka na acha, and that's that.
Yeah, and you can be creative, man. After this episode, ngicela someone abe like motivated. A vegan quota or a vegetarian quota. It'll be nice, sure.
That'll be nice, and they should tag you on it.
Yeah, but tell me, right? In being a vegetarian and being a vegan, right? There's something that I've noticed, right? There's organic food that comes into this, right? What really is happening in that space? Why are people like encouraged to eat more of like organic food? Where we talk about like pesticides and GMOs.
Yeah. So I think on like the starting off, it's just the organic is like more healthier.
Okay.
So as you're saying, I think you had mentioned pesticides as well as like GMO, so genetically modified organisms. It's just like it's really getting food that is at its like purest, for a lack of a better word.
Okay.
So food that hasn't been kind of like modified, or that hasn't had any like genetic engineering. So like genetically modified organisms, as you've mentioned, which is basically when you alter or like play around with some of like organisms' genes.
Okay.
And there's a number of reasons why people actually do this. So I think there's conversations and discussions that I've had in the past of really GM food, kind of genetically modified foods, and if those are good for people. And but I think like science kind of says that like if you had to necessarily be like, are they good or not good? I think science, or what we are told, is that like there's a lot of like testing that goes into this. So like whatever food that we consume that might be GM or might contain GM, that has been tested. So it's at the level where it's like safe for human consumption. And pesticides, obviously, I think you touched a little on that, which were just like what chemicals that farmers or people use to like spray on their plants, just to make sure that we are kind of controlling or getting rid. I don't like to use kill, but like to control the pests. So things like rodents, such as like insects that like eat the leaves. All that, right? So organic essentially means that you don't have all of that, and genetically modified means that you're having something that has had some engineering or some kind of tweaking and playing around that has happened. And I mean, these things are done for, I mean, one, it's really about like making a lot of food. So like, I think there's a lot of like points that go into it. So one, it's cheaper. Like food that's genetically made tends to be much cheaper. It's also about, what do you call it? I'm losing my train of thought, but it's about the having plants that are resistant to certain things. Okay. So, i.e., you would inject either like certain genes of like viruses into plants just to make sure that they are virus resistant, or sometimes you inject some antibiotics just to make sure. But also, like on a larger scale, also and maybe like the reason as to why maybe sometimes people opt to go for that is like we are living in a climate crisis, and I think maybe that's a perfect opportunity to tie in these droughts and these kind of all of these weather extreme like that are coming about as a result
climate
of
change.
Like, climate change. Of all these fossil fuels that are being burned. So sometimes having or making food or genetically modifying these plants ensures that they're resistant. So you can actually grow them in certain areas where they wouldn't necessarily be, or you can grow them throughout the year. And again, I think we're in Africa, so these conversations of like hunger and people not having food, and sometimes that is also used to say we should not necessarily like focus so much on whether it's genetically modified because it feeds people. But again, there's the school of people that say we don't want anything that's altered, we want something that's pure. So there's a yin and a yang. So there's negatives and positives to kind of genetically modified. And pesticides, also if they're used safely. So like the other thing about pesticides is like making sure that like they are used safely and they do not necessarily like make, how do you say, like seep into the food or that they are not consumed by people. So it's very important when they are used. Because again, there's reasons as to why farmers or people would use them. So it's a way of not necessarily like telling them that what you're doing is wrong. Maybe it's more of like an education on how are you using them. I mentioned just recently I'd read an article where a group of women farm workers had actually kind of went to court and had essentially said that kind of like the pesticides that are kind of like in the list for like the pesticides that are used in South Africa are very like outdated, like the control or the management of just like that and like pesticides that are used or that are allowed to be used. It's very outdated. They cited about 76 pesticides that are pretty much have been banned in the EU, so in the European
Union?
Yes, EU, is that what it is? And it was just really raising those questions as to like, if it's been banned in the EU, why in South Africa are we still using that? I feel like I went very scientific about it. I hope I answered your question.
I get. Ne? And before we get into this, I wanna understand the thing, because this is what actually nyayizonda le nto le ne. Nyayizonda.
Oh, we need to follow.
Where people use the overpopulation thing to create GMOs, to justify GMOs. And it to me it's like, is there really a reason for us to play that card? To create like more food using GMOs? Because we think then that is like the good way. But I mean, like cancer, which is killing people, it's because of GMOs. I stand to be corrected yet again, guys.
I mean, so there are like articles or like studies that have been done that have kind of like associated like cancer to like pesticides that are used, or like things essentially that we inject or spray onto. Because again, I think it's just that it's we are not oblivious to the fact that these are chemicals and toxins that necessarily are not originating from, are not natural, I would say.
Okay.
So anytime you introduce that, we don't know, because also people are different. We react differently to certain toxins in whatever we have. So I might get a reaction that you don't necessarily get from it. So, so it's just that so I think that's that. So you're not completely off the mark. There is some reading on that that suggests that. And you had spoken about overpopulation, and that's being used as a card to use genetically.
Yeah, it's they justify we're gonna create these lot of plants and we're gonna inject them to grow fast because there's a lot of people and a lot of people need food.
Yeah, and I guess probably my response to that would just be people, and I'm assuming in this case these are probably I don't know, the people in power. I just lose the English word now, but
world leaders.
Yeah, it's maybe sort out the real issue and don't try and use overpopulation as a card to do anything. Just if we had better management and we were able, and countries or governments or states were able to better look after their people, and ensure that there's no hunger, and people get or have access to nutritional food. Maybe sort out the climate crisis. Maybe let's start off on that. Because that's messing everything up.
Sure.
Not necessarily overpopulation, because it's a lie when people use there's too many people on the planet. No, it is all the toxins and all the fuel that is being burnt that ultimately is poisoning, resulting in, people having to now, genetically modify food, because again, it's we need to feed people, and if there are droughts and there are soil erosion, so floods that literally wipe out the topsoil where the nutritional part of the soil or the top layer of the soil, and if there's floods, it completely washes that out. And again, thinking of the grander scheme of it, if there's toxins already in this and then they wash into the ocean, so that means ultimately the fish get it, then that finds a way into our system. So it's all connected, really. But fundamentally, I would say stop using kind of population or overpopulation as a scapegoat from really sorting out the real issue, which in this case is climate change or climate crisis.
I hope Nizwile. World leaders, I hope Nizwile, right? But tell me something, right? The food that is GMO filled, created, is it farmers or scientists?
Oh, that maybe might be a question above my pay grade, but I will try to tackle it.
Yeah.
I guess it's probably just a collaboration of the two. So I would assume people who've studied engineering and can do that, then they would obviously be hey, this is the solution that we have. And also as farmers, and again, we both maybe stand to be corrected on this, but as farmers, I would assume you pretty much make a living out of what you grow and the crops that you grow. So anything that kind of reveals or shows itself as a solution or poses as a solution, then you would obviously use it. And now we're talking really about small holder farmers, or farmers that either grow their crops for their own family, but also as well for selling and making an income out of it. Yeah. So I think it's a combination. And again, I think maybe just to be devil's advocates also, if we can do that, is I think it has its pros and cons, really. I think there's times when, you maybe farmers need to embrace kind of genetically modified species or seeds or whatever it might be, because of just the situation. And also, but again, I think in times when maybe, for an example, if a specific pesticide has been identified to be cancer causing or to be affecting people's health, then I think it's only right that we maybe pull the brakes a little on them and do some more studies or research on it. Because again, I think it's as much as we want to keep our people fed, it's very important that we are also not killing them in the process as well, and that people are still healthy and they can enjoy all that Africa and South Africa has to offer.
Wena ngithandela lokho wena.
Yeah.
Because ngathi uyazi ukuthi yiwaphi la. You mentioned farmers being able to like farm for their families, communities, for like selling purposes and also for themselves, right? And you spoke about crops being involved, seeds being involved. Now we have this situation
We love situations. Tell me.
in Kenya. That I don't love, man. Angazi ukuthi mawuthi we.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
I don't love this one.
Don't love.
No, I don't love this one.
Okay.
So in Kenya, farmers are being arrested for sharing their seeds. What's your take on that?
Do we have like a beep? Beep. No. Okay. Cool. I'll be respectful. No. So I will not be that person. Family friendly. So it's really like a sad. It's really sad what is happening then, because once again it's again like our leaders or people that we've elected and put into power to really like lead us and make the right decisions for us. It's them again, I think, just like choosing profit over like people. It's really a selling and really selling us to the highest bidder. So a little like into like what's happening in Kenya is essentially there are these punitive laws that have been put in place that are being taken to court. So a number of smallholder farmers, so as we've mentioned, like farmers that grow for their own kind of communities as well as to make an income out of what they grow, they have kind of taken the government to court, really citing how punitive and like how nonsensical these laws that they're wanting to put in place, which basically say that you cannot exchange kind of indigenous seeds. So imagine we're both farmers and you kept some of your seeds because you obviously want to use them in the next, I don't know what the term is. Season, thank you.
Yeah.
We're such a great team together. So in the next season, so they would obviously keep them, and because like Ubuntu is a thing. If you don't have, I have seeds. So there's that kind of like sharing of seeds,
and maybe bartering
as well too. Whatever the case is, essentially Kenya is coming down and saying that we can't, or farmers can't do that. They've imposed a 2-year imprisonment if you do it, or like a ban of like a lot of money, which is just like ridiculous. Because I think what also, as much as like it's just like, but I think it's that importance of like seeds and like how those are also very important to like us as people. Like essentially, I can only imagine like farmers like passing down these seeds and like having sessions with their young people to say, hey, this is how you grow crops. So fundamentally, when you cut out a bartering or sharing, not bartering, but like a sharing of these seeds, you're ultimately also cutting that out. So it's like a whole generation of people learning about indigenous seeds and learning about just like culture and what that means. And so that's what's happening in Kenya. It's not cool at all.
You know what's funny?
Yes.
This is the very same Kenya. Like this week, 2-3 days, 4 days back. Yeah, manje. They ran the Africa Climate Summit. I'm like, how does a country host this type of a summit, yet its very own government is actually arresting people for sharing seeds? And it's not like big scale farmers, it's like small scale farmers, like communities that live out of this, right? How does that like make the community as a whole? Because I think you also need crops for your food.
Yeah, I do. And like the better the seeds are, and like the more like nutritional the food is, I like to think. And also I think it then cuts out like the, if I know a small farmer that is growing like seeds or whatever the case is, that's like down the road or like local. I think that in its own, again, the larger scheme of it, it's helping like the climate and like, because it means I don't need to travel so long to get to them. I can simply just like drive or walk down, cycle down to my farm and get what I need to get. We're cutting out really the emissions of like trucks and flying it over, importing it and all that comes, that comes with it. Unlike the Kenya and like the summit, I don't like. I feel like I don't think I would say anything that would like keep you on. Like I feel like we're gonna like X the show after I say anything.
Yeah.
But it's just. I just hope that we use such kind of like summits or opportunities to really like call out and say, hey, it's very hypocritical what you're doing, and this is how it's affecting us. And I'm happy to have heard that they were kind of like activists and like organizations that went that kind of are in support of kind of doing away with these punitive laws that just like this whole like neo-colonial like approach or system that like governments tend to take up on work with or like follow. So I guess it's that. It's really a try as much as we can just to like, hey, hopefully it will make sense and the math will math. Because right now the math is not mathing.
Man.
What it is.
As in, what's a hypocrite in Xhosa?
Oh Lord, why are you putting me on that spot? Is it
Yeah, they are that. Kenyan government, you are that. But then it's fine. So you say ubugelile the previous episode, ne?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, I did with August. I loved it.
Okay. Now tell me, right? There's this segment. I said activists are gonna love this, right? And before we get into it, right? I just want to know what do you think about it? Where, as the IroC podcast, we kind of say thank you for the work that you've been doing, and that's not saying that we are the only ones who are doing it, but I'm just putting it out there to say this is really one of the most important things that as a country we forgot to do. So what do you what did you think about that nominate your community hero?
I want to be very simple and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think we don't do a lot of that, and I think that's like awesome. And like big ups to you for like introducing that
part.
And because it's not done, I think like the more we can really like shine a light on folks and people that are, or like organizations that are like trying to do their bit to make like this country or like this world a better place. So I loved it.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not know about the nominate your community hero type of a thing, or nominate a hero. So basically what we're doing there is that we want to say to these people that thank you for the amazing work that you are doing out there. You might not be seen by a lot of people, but as the IroC podcast, we'd like to say we see you and we appreciate the work that you are doing. You might be doing it for 100 people. You might be doing it for like 20 people. You might be doing it for 2 people because your hero might be just one person, you know, and who's just doing their heroism like towards you only, right? And with that, I just want to say thank you. So with that being said, Pega Ogosh, please nominate your hero and tell us why are they your hero?
So it is an organization that I have yet to really like go like really work with them in that way. But it's called Nosh, so it's SOSH. My spelling caught me there a little. But essentially, they are an organization, an NPC that really, I think it's okay. Cool. I sidetracked. So let me bring it back to this because there's like a whole thing that I want to tell you about, which I'm going to tell you about later on. But essentially what they do is they go around and they collect kind of like surplus food or like extra food This can be from like restaurants or like households where people don't necessarily like use, for example, like Cabbage that, you know, you bought bulk because there's like this whole thing of that you should buy bulk. So you bought a lot and then you unfortunately
from that
can't
store
eat-
le
from-
qala ngo-M ne.
bulk. Okay, no.
Khona le yama bulk.
Yes, bulk. We are not going to be name calling about you.
Stinging, guys.
Lega M is store. You know, sometimes you buy a lot because I do it too. Like the thing is that I like how like I walk around, I'm like, don't do it. I do it all the time. Like right now, it's like just yesterday, I was like, things have gone bad. But I will find something to do with them, or I will just like donate it to a Nosh. So essentially, they collect these foods and they essentially like distribute it or like reuse it, or not reuse it, but probably like re-prepare it. And they really like go around and they feed people with no homes. And what's really nice is from time to time they host like really amazing like 5-course, 3-course meals for people where they like have actually using the food that they've collected. What's really important again, that link again of like the whole cycle is what people don't know is like food wastage is also like a big thing. You know, when Maulahli Cabbage dustbin, and you think that's that. And then, cool, I've done my bit, and if I get dustbin, I didn't throw it outside, so that's good. But essentially what then happens is that all of this food makes its way to a
landfills?
Landfills, that's the word, yes, thank you. It makes it to the landfills. And like when the food starts breaking down, it releases methane gas or emissions. And for those of us who might not know methane, but essentially it's a greenhouse gas that is much more potent and much more like its impacts or its effect on like people or the atmosphere is much more worse than CO2, than carbon dioxide. So again, it's really like one of those things and maybe it's also a challenge for us as like chefs that when we do prepare food, like how are we sustainably and like responsibly, how do you say it, like managing our food wastage? Like what are we doing with it? Like are we donating it to such organizations or are you composting it now in a compost behind you if you have the space?
Yes.
In a compost, do you have like a compost bucket? Sometimes you don't always need to necessarily have a compost in your backyard.
Backyard, yeah.
You can literally like you bag it, put it outside, and makatama cabbage and all of these things, throw it in there. And I'm sure, like you know someone who has a garden, or you know somebody who like has a compost heap, or you know someone who knows someone that they might use this waste. Just give it to them, because in that way you're just like really preventing it from landing up in the land. You say, and essentially just like emitting methane, and again, climate, that effect, droughts, and like genetics. It's adding up. It's all adding up. It is all adding up.
You know, I was telling August last week, right? Firstly, shout out, Nosh, shout out, right? What I'll do is I'll put their contact details. And if you would like to donate, you can simply contact them, and you'd like to sponsor, you'd like to reach out, you'd like to volunteer there, you'd like to go cook, just go on the description box and their information will be there, and just reach out to them. But what I was saying, right? I was talking to August last week that I actually like how everything just like nakho isilungu sabalekela mina zonke lezi zinto lezi ziyaphilisana, right? And I love that I didn't know, right, that actually throwing away food also has that effect, because I knew that for some vegans, why they don't eat beef and chicken, it's because they are producing methane, right? So do vegans, vegetarians, in a way also, like, if they're not aware, do they also like contribute to having this methane being produced by throwing away their food?
I guess indirectly, so in like not knowing, you do it, and I guess a little bit of learning from everyone doesn't really help.
Sure.
And this is why it's so amazing that we have this show, because then people are going to use it as a way of educating themselves.
Yeah, Department
like
of
that.
Basic Education. Please, ngicela kuma-smart board nidlale the podcast.
Please.
Bazofunda abantwana.
Please, they must. But it's that. It's really I think indirectly and in not knowing, we could be doing it. And yeah, I guess like we're not necessarily going to like fall into the conversation of, I mean, it's an important conversation of just like, like eating plant-based is
Sure.
how do you say, like, I don't want to say better, but certainly like it has a lot less effects.
Eco-friendly?
Eco-friendly. I don't know how I feel about that term, because I feel like it just like gets slapped onto everything and it has become a marketing tool.
Sure.
But let's just say it's one that aligns or like works with, was more kind to the environment and like the atmosphere and like the planet. But it's just because, as you said, I think you had mentioned like the kind of like, what do you call it, like kettles and how like cows and methane and like and all of that and the water that goes into really like, how do you say it, like farming, growing these animals.
Oh yeah.
Whatever the case is, but I guess to answer your question, I always like went around. Your question was, we could indirectly, not knowing, be actually contributing to it.
Sure.
So it's this whole thing of I'm eating plants and I'm doing my bit and like they're biodegradable and like I just throw them in the bin. But in actual fact, they don't actually make their way to like a garden and do what they need to do. They really make their way to a landfill. And I'm getting it right? I learned it's a landfill. And then, of course, they cause just like havoc and a mess.
Here's what I'm saying.
I am schooled today.
What if after this podcast, someone on the comment section just be like, guys, it's not landfill. This is what landfill is. And since it should landfill.
Oh, my Lord. I feel like we just like run with it. We'll run with it.
Guys, wherever la balahla khona udoti. Yeah, that place.
That's being a scene, yeah.
Yeah, la balahla khona udoti.
Yes, I like that.
So, I want us to kind of close it off.
Sounds serious.
Angazi ukuthi yini le esishile. Yeah, if sishile ne kuzoba no part 2 somewhere.
Yes, actually, now that I think of it, there's quite a lot that we know. So we need a part 2. Please call me back.
Okay. So yenza part 2, guys. No what. So here is I actually even don't like this term ordinary man, right? But here is a person who doesn't have much information. Because we were talking about this and it was like, yeah, here is a person from Ekasi, as if Ekasi Tinas Fundanga me like, right? So here is a person who really isn't aware about organic food, vegetables, fruits, and thinking about shop W.
Yes.
But what is a better way to access healthy organic food?
I knew it. This was like a very one of those academic questions, or like I need to be serious. So it is. I think we might have like touched a little on it like early on, or like alluded to like maybe encouraging where possible for people to like grow their own food and like start up their own little mini gardens. I mean, there's tons of like video clips on YouTube, and like YouTube is the new university. I mean, we look at us. You're like basically educating everyone with this, Prof. IroC. Maybe it should be Prof.
Prof. IroC.
Oh my Lord, look at that.
Wait,
okay, cool.
Prof. IroC or Dr. IroC?
Doctor sounds better. Let's go with Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, and people in between.
Doctor.
The Dr. IroC. Round of applause. We need drums. Wait, can we edit? Like have drums after this. Okay, going back to the question, because I've completely deviated from it. So where possible, because again, I think it's really looking at like we're not all necessarily like privileged to like have space to grow these. So where you can like grow your own food, I think that's always ideal. And that way you also know like what you're putting in there, and you know like you can manage it properly. It's maybe just like rephrase me on the question again. Maybe I feel like it has completely
accessibility. How do they access it, right? Besides, I'm not even sure. Does that W shop sell organic food? That one, black and white.
I guess we'll never really know. Like as I said to you, like I think a lot of like these terms, like eco-friendly and like organic, have been used as a marketing tool. So now I just think, hey, here's a car and it's organic. I'm just gonna put a stamp on it, and therefore we're supposed to really believe it. But I guess there's. I think that we can never really like answer, and it's really a matter of like, you know, it is what it is. Do you believe people or not believe them on there? But it's maybe also like looking at stores. So you don't have to go to that store necessarily to get organic food. Like I drive past, or walk past, or come across a lot of like our mama or people who are like selling vegetables on the side of a road. And like most of the time, like they've grown their own. So like that's another way of, so stop looking at like this, I need to go to that specific store to like get things. I think we can also look at like buying local is always good. Yeah, and like maybe using things like schools. Like I know there's quite a lot of like school projects for like churches or like wherever to like start gardens, because like those are places that have like place to like grow your own.
Sure.
Because we all know like how access to food is like a serious problem.
Sure.
And maybe sometimes like also in South Africa, it's not necessarily like an issue of not having enough food, but it's really like access. And there's quite a lot to it. Like I think like a lot of driving factors behind it, like poverty, like one, like if abantu abasebenzi and like you're unemployed, and we all know like how that is, you're not going to be able to have access to. So it's also maybe about like looking, I feel like I'm deviating, but I'm on this train and I'm going with it. So like a lot of like driving factors as to like that prevent people from access. So maybe the issue is like fix those things. So like, you know, like what did I just mention? What was my first point? Like poverty. So like, you know, people in power, do your bit to like solve like the unemployment crisis, because then in that way it means that people have access and are able to actually access food, because it's there, but it's what you're saying, it's at the store. It probably doesn't cost like
it's not cheap.
It's not cheap. So that I meant like geography really matters, and like where you are. It also looks at certain things like the climate and the environment and all of that. But we're not going to go into that because I feel like we've like completely talked about that. But it's that. I think it's just like try and find places where you can like get food like easily or like close to you. And I guess,
Hey guys, so you know, as you're talking, I'm just thinking, and we are closing it off. We are closing it off. In my primary school that I went to, right? Oh, like it had some beautiful, nice garden. Like, so our principal kind of like went to this open space and like drew like the continent, right? And then was like, for each country, we're gonna put like a specific like vegetable. Okay, like there are some countries where like it's ngane, so this like it's carrots if you want to say, lago say. That one. But like for South Africa, like South Africa sotshala ma carrots, in Mozambique sotshala ma, you know, and that, you know, and now it's no longer there. But I like the fact that you said of where possible, start a garden. So can a community as a whole come and say, we as a community, we're gonna take this space and we're gonna plant, you know, and then we're going to distribute it?
Nothing stops them from that. Like, I think if the will is there and there's the eagerness of people to get their hands dirty, in like the most literal way, like
Sure.
getting your hands dirty. It's also like maybe sometimes, because I get it, when people like start your own farm and it's like, how am I going to do it? I don't know how to do it. And like, I don't necessarily have like the correct knowledge or like experience. I think there's certain like organizational like courses that people can take. Like for one, there's like the permaculture. And I know little story because like we know each other so much. I know you've also like taken part in the same.
Sure.
Probably you would have a better understanding of it, but like I think like there's nothing stopping us from like making partnerships with people that like putting everyone through that. So if like let's say Elokshini and we want to use the school down the road, Sakele school, for example, and we have no clue as to like how to start things off. Like invite someone who understands like permaculture. Like they will. Sure. Also, what's really great about them is that they like it's like a holistic way of like working with the earth. So it looks at like design and like all systems and like how do things like help each other. Mm-hmm. So there are like organizations and people that do have those skills and those expertise. So it's really about like making connections with them and linking up with them. And then in that way, we know we've started the school and there's a vegetable garden. Everybody here knows exactly, like understands how to look after this. Because sometimes it's that. It's like you start it up and then another important thing, like make sure that everybody understands it or like a few people. And it's not just like, one person's a custodian of it because like if that person, so if IroC decides to leave, then it's like, okay, IroC was the only person who like knew how to. So it's also about like educating. So like it's also if you know, share, if you know, you share. And if you teach and learn, there's like a saying, but I don't think I'm saying it correctly. But it's that. It's like make connections with people that have the correct expertise. Again, like YouTube is like the biggest thing. You can
This podcast
and maybe it'll be like really great in future to like invite like experts and like specifically have a section on
yeah, Mara invited you.
I meant you invited me, but that's true. I meant you're still gonna invite me again, so maybe next episode. Maybe I'll stop talking so that I can like to be continued in the next one.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Lindo Mhlanga Mhlanga. Guys, if you have a thing that you'd like to do in your community, please do it. If you in a school and you see that the school nutrition program is not being rolled out and you have like the knowledge about it, please do that. So in closing, all I just want to say is if you see that there is a need for your intervention, please do that. If you see that there is like a need of your skill, go out and do that. And in so doing, you're making your community a better place for people to be. With that,
I have a question for you. I'm sorry, I don't know if this is like standard.
Yeah.
But in the first kind of like podcast, in the one with August
pilot,
you didn't necessarily like. Because I know we've had conversations, or maybe this is like intruding into our private conversations that we've had. But I like IroC. Like, what specifically like led you to like call this the like IroC podcast? What is IroC? I guess like what does IroC mean?
Hey guys, I'm putting this. So IroC, there is a specific term for people who have like one name that has two meanings. Mm-hmm. So there's two meanings of it. Right. After this, ngayvala. Okay. So IroC wasn't like is not my birth name, obviously. My parents would rock for naming me that. But yeah, IroC has two meanings. So the first one that and people usually ask me this, what does IroC mean? The first one that I discovered before this one was in the Bible, actually. I was reading the book of Psalms and David says, and I shall rely on Christ completely. And I was like, hey, I rely on Christ. So that was like IroC. That's where it comes from. And then the second one was the intellectual relations of consciousness, because like through my activism work and people like, yeah, wena ukhuluma kakhulu. I was like, yeah, but I talk things that like provoke your consciousness, you know. So I was like that, you know, and that came into like an action of like, what do I do? So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is IroC. IroC is who I am. IroC is what I do, and IroC is not just a noun, but IroC is a verb. Shout out.